Not to enforce a stereotype or anything, but Canada isn't exactly the place you think of when you're talking about urban legends and scary stories. They've got such a good reputation as a country that it's not really a topic of discussion among people. But much like any other country, Canada does have their own set of urban legends, and these urban legends are sure to send shivers up your spine. So let's take a look at 7 of the scariest urban legends that Canada has to offer.
7.
John Troyer. Let's kick this list off with a bang, shall we? This one is a story that centers around an American-Canadian exorcist named John Troyer, who was born into an Amish family that relocated from the United States to Canada. After relocating, Troyer soon discovered that he had some hidden abilities. Now, Troyer was well known among the public for having a fear of witches and other dark mythical forces. Oddly enough, and according to the legend, his fears actually led him to stalk witches until they led him to their dens. Upon discovering their dens, he would then steal their broomsticks and use them for personal transportation. There are other stories of him locating secret areas where groups of witches meet and then setting up traps in order to capture or harm them in some way. One thing we know for sure is that he did create large traps, which were basically just human-sized bear traps. He eventually passed away in 1842 and is still remembered in local folklore to this day.
6.
Rose La Tulip legend. Now, we should mention that there are many different versions of this particular story, but we're going to focus on this one. Just keep in mind that there are alternative versions of this well-known Canadian urban legend. This story centers around a young girl who spent the night dancing with a stranger. At midnight, the stranger revealed to Rose that he was no ordinary human. In fact, he wasn't human at all. He was actually the devil himself, Satan. Rose was horrified, but it was far too late to do anything at that point. The devil kidnapped Rose and took her back to hell with him, where she remains to this day. This is just one of many Canadian legends that tell of young girls dancing with evil figures who ultimately harm them. It's thought that the stories were developed over time to warn young people against dancing with strangers. Well, we have no idea why they're so worried about dancing with strangers and not hanging out with strangers or taking rides from strangers or taking candy from strangers, but we think you get the point.
5.
Dungarvan Whooper. Here we have one of the more well-known Canadian urban legends. It's based around the Dungarvan River, and the story centers on a young cook who works at a lumber camp along the river. One day, the boss at the lumber camp ended the young boy's life, and apparently cooked his remains and feasted on them. When the other workers started questioning the whereabouts of the young boy, the boss told them that the boy had just mysteriously vanished without a trace and played dumb, claiming that he had no idea of the boy's whereabouts. One night, the camp was shaken by the sounds of ghostly screams, and the workers ran, fearing for their lives, and abandoned the camp. They say the boy's ghost still haunts the abandoned camp. This urban legend wasn't really a mainstream one, as it was mostly passed down from generation to generation between those who worked at lumber yards. Eventually, it did enter the mainstream Canadian culture and is considered to be one of the creepiest stories told there today.
4.
Lady in Red in Lower Bay Station. So it may come as a surprise to you that the TTC map doesn't show every single stop that was once a part of Toronto's underground system. On the route shown on the map, there are many hidden stations that are no longer in service and are not open to the public. Lower Bay Station was opened during the early days of the TTC, but abandoned later on. Today, the station is often used in Hollywood films or music videos, but you don't want to hear about that. No, you want to know the dark secrets behind it. Well, in all honesty, there isn't anything too dark, and there really isn't any story behind it. The reason that this is considered to be an urban legend is because it's said to be the home of the Lady in Red. Rumors started circulating among TTC workers that there was a ghost called the Lady in Red that wears a red dress and appears on the platform when you're alone. That's all we'd need to hear if we were one of those TTC workers, and we'd be looking for a new job elsewhere. The last place we'd want to be with a ghost is in an abandoned train station.
3.
The Legend of Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. For those of you who may not know, the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse is a historical relic on the Toronto Islands. This particular lighthouse is shrouded in a mysterious legend that has existed for over a century. According to the legend, the first keeper of the lighthouse, J.P. Radin Muller, angered some soldiers from Fort York. It was said that Muller made a living selling whiskey to the soldiers, and unfortunately for him, he thought it would be a good idea to con them by watering down the booze. When the soldiers discovered he was watering down their liquor, they confronted Muller, which led to a drunken brawl that ended with the lighthouse keeper being killed. His body was never found, though, just blood cascading down the spiraling stairs. Years later, in 1893, another lighthouse keeper, George Dernan, decided to try and put an end to the mystery, so he searched around the lighthouse grounds for the corpse and eventually discovered some scattered bones buried fairly close to the lighthouse itself. He found a jawbone, but it was not possible to conclude whether or not it was Muller's. As one of the oldest urban legends in Toronto, the truth behind Muller's passing remains a mystery to this day.
2,
The Cave Monster. Now, for this story to work, we need you to think back to your childhood. Well, unless you weren't the outgoing type, then we'll need you to use your imagination. But either way, think back to the times when you would go out with your friends and play hide and seek. Now, remember when you found that perfect hiding place? You know, the empty concrete tunnel? Then, as you're crawling into the tunnel, you look up ahead and all you see in the darkness is a pair of red eyes looking back at you menacingly, and then that whisper,
"Leave me alone."
Oh, you don't remember that part? Well, it would be creepy if it happened, right? Well, that's essentially how this story goes, except this story doesn't involve kids, and it doesn't involve a game of hide and seek. So way back in 1979, a 51-year-old man named Ernest went looking for his missing kitten on Parliament Street, and he had just such an experience. The monster was described as having gray fur, red eyes, and weighing approximately 30 pounds. This story made such an impact that it ended up gaining the attention of the city of Toronto. They actually went and inspected the tunnel over safety concerns that children might try to enter it. Now, the validity of this man's claims are up for questioning, as there have been no other eyewitnesses. But true or not, this story has all the components for a perfect urban legend. A monster, an intriguing story, some mystery, and the ability to give you goosebumps. Give it a few more years and there'll probably be a standard horror film in production about this urban tale.
1,
Lake Ontario's underwater UFO base. How else could we end this video but with a story that involves aliens? Now, this one may hit a bit closer to home for residents in Toronto, considering that back in 2014, there were several eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen a UFO fly over the city. But we're not here to talk about that. No, we're actually talking about Canada's own Area 51. According to urban legend, there is a secret UFO base under Lake Ontario, with multiple people reporting seeing strange lights over the lake, including occasional tales of the lights plunging into or emerging from the water. Of course, there are people out there who simply dismiss this as lighting from buildings across the water and whatnot. But where's the fun in that explanation? Sometimes it's fun to really go out there when speculating on things like this, right? And that's our list. Did we leave out any scary Canadian urban legends that you know about? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe for more content and to tap the bell icon to never miss an upload. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.